The female athlete triad is a medical condition characterized by three interrelated health problems, which are energy deficiency, reproductive suppression, and compromised bone health. Let's dive into these components in more detail. Energy availability describes the difference between the amount of energy one intakes and the amount of energy that is expended. The measurement is standardized to kilogram of fat-free mass, otherwise known as FFM. If there is more energy being expended than consumed, there is a greater risk for energy and other nutritional deficiencies. Energy deficiency is common amongst athletes who participate in sports that emphasize leanness or weight control, such as figure skating, rowing, and endurance sports.
Reproductive suppression can arise due to energy deficiency. Reproductive suppression in female athletes can manifest as menstrual irregularities or the complete loss of the menstrual cycle. There's evidence that athletes who participate in endurance sports and leanness-based sports can be adversely affected by reproductive suppression that is associated with low levels of estrogen that can negatively affect bone health.
The third component of the triad is impaired bone health. There is evidence that female athletes who are at high risk for having low energy availability or energy deficiency also report to have low BMD scores and a high prevalence of bone stress injuries, including shin splints and stress fractures.
Now let's look at how the female athlete triad can be treated. It is important to be able to identify who is at risk for this condition. We mentioned before that female athletes who participate in certain sports that are leanness-based sports are at higher risk. It is important to be able to identify different risks, which can include obsession with exercise, extreme weight control behaviors, and disordered eating habits such as skipping meals, restricting food intake, and a high internal drive to be thin. Other risk factors include not getting your first period until after the age of 14, being too thin, and not eating enough food to fuel the body properly to meet all of the needs for exercising and training.
Furthermore, athletes may be practicing disordered eating habits within their sport, whether it is to perform better, meet a certain weight requirement, or to look what they think is aesthetically pleasing. To prevent habits such as these, the focus on weight as a marker of performance should be less emphasized. Additionally, an athlete's training regimen should include an environment that ensures healthy eating behaviors are being utilized. A training system that allows for adequate time for breaks, including times for meals and snacks in order to properly refuel and hydrate, should be utilized. Failure to do so may result in an increased risk of injury and the effects of the triad. For athletes, consuming an appropriate amount of food at regular intervals during training can ensure adequate energy intake and further prevent low energy availability. However, the dietary needs of an athlete must ensure that the athlete reaches his or her overall nutrition goals, taking into consideration adequate energy and nutrition requirements. Additionally, there is a psychological aspect to athletes suffering from low energy availability. Various parts of the body can affect the athlete's psychological state. While each case is unique, there are comorbidities such as depression, anxiety, and self-harm that can elevate the severity of these conditions. In cases such as these, psychological treatment is paramount in getting the athlete back on track. Professional help may be necessary and should include a sports nutritionist and proper medical care from a physician who understands the nuances of the triad. Now let's look at some treatments for impaired bone health. A healthy balance of energy intake and expenditure is necessary for maintaining and improving bone health. Recovery of menstrual function is important to ensure levels of estrogen are adequate to promote bone health. Additionally, weight-bearing and resistance exercise should also be utilized in order to improve bone health. Another way to manage your bone health is to get a screening for bone density and a vitamin D3 test, which may be provided by your local primary care physician if he or she feels it is warranted. It is also important to maintain adequate intake of calcium and vitamin D in your daily diet. As mentioned before, energy deficiency can result in reduced estrogen levels that accompany menstrual irregularities and amenorrhea, the failure to menstruate for 3 months in a row or longer. Adequate energy intake to meet exercise needs is important to prevent reproductive suppression in female athletes. In conclusion, the most important fact to consider is energy. Your body needs a certain amount of energy in the form of food to train and compete. If it is not provided, the body suffers and the complications of the triad rear its ugly head. Remember, you must nourish to flourish. However, with more research on the way, we can help raise awareness for athletes who suffer from the adverse effects of the female athlete triad. For more information, please go to the Female Athlete Triad Coalition website at www.femaleandmaleathletetriad.org.